Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three. All right, my levels are good. Welcome all to Cutting Edge Monday. Mondays where we talk about AI, automation, and virtual reality, and topics concerning and other topics concerning those topics. Excuse me. Today is Monday, June 4th, 2018, and I feel that we have a good show for you tonight. Excuse me. Today, as you all know, we'll be talking about, like I said, previously said, automation, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. Things we'll be talking about today, Waymo. Waymo will be adding more cars to its fleet, and California will be contracting with, excuse me, with driverless vehicles to start implementing uh, driverless vehicles picking up people, both driverless vehicles with a person with a human inside, and driverless vehicles without a human inside will be picking up people. Also, some news out of China. They are ramping up their automated vehicles and their artificial intelligence. Also, China has done something which is pretty smart. They have um, put RFID chips in tires to help customers know when a tire is on its way to being defective or needs to be replaced. All that and more today. Just want to let a few people come in. A few, excuse me, a few of the hosts come in. Let's see here. So, with that said, I believe we may as well get started. Give me one moment, please. All right. One of my concerns, and I'm going to read this before, uh, there was something that I always had concern over. And I just want to point this out for people that don't. Um, People that read this, well, not read this, look at automation and say, hey, it's nothing to worry about. I'm not going to read the entire article, but Las Vegas casino workers prep for strike over automation. Robots can't beat us. I think they will. Increasing automation has become a sticking point alongside other issues that could see workers, excuse me, bring city to a standstill. this is this is about to happen, people. This is about to happen. So, with that said, I'd like to say hello to our other host, Mike. How you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
I'm good. How you doing today?
Good, man.
All right. Yes, the strikes are starting over automation.
It's gonna be a whole lot more coming in the next year or so. So
Yeah, I see. I feel it's gonna be, well, it's not really feeling, but to a lot of people, it's gonna come out of nowhere.
hmm
Just
well,
go ahead.
it you know it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So we use technology, for our convenience, but then when the convenience starts to displace us, then now we have a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Goodness.
It just like Occupy Wall Street, people were fed up with the whole entire financial system. You're gonna have like an Occupy Tech Street or some kind of like Occupy Silicon Valley where people are just gonna be fed up with, your technical geniuses who are creating all these applications as well as these cobots and robots and devices that are starting to cause displacement.
And I can already see politicians campaigning, and one of their campaign points is being protecting jobs or bringing jobs back or stopping out automation or something to that effect. I can already see that coming down the pipeline.
Well, I think technically what's going to eventually happen is that as more of these devices and applications, pieces of software and hardware start to replace and displace people, you're going to see more governments get involved in taxing these devices, hardware and software wise. Because they have to make up for the loss of revenue, right? Your human beings, your human resources are contributing, whether they're U.S. citizens or they're immigrants that come across the border for on temporary visas. They're actually contributing to society by fulfilling the tax system with their labor. But if you start using these robots that actually don't need breaks, they don't need vacation, they don't need a pension, they need very little supervision. They don't pay taxes. You're gonna have to figure out a way to squeeze that revenue out of these software and hardware devices going forward. Because if your tax base starts to dip, then what happens is infrastructure can't be built further or can't be maintained. Your public institutions, such as your schools and your court systems and your public health care systems and things like that, your police departments, are largely funded by your city taxpayers, right? Civil services. So
that's a good thought. I haven't thought about that at all. Well, interesting times, as they say. So with this said, let's get the show going. Let me share my screen once again. Hold on. And one of the points you sent out was this Engadget article dated 31st by David Lumb. And it is Waymo will add 62,000 Chrysler hybrid minivans to its fleet. 62,000. Wow. And I wonder how many of those 62,000s were just vehicles lying around, just taking up space. Because it seems like a lot, in my opinion.
You may have to repeat what you said because you broke up. No one can really hear you.
I wonder how many of those 62,000 that they're adding to their fleet were just vehicles that were lying around. Because 62,000 seems like a lot, in my opinion.
Well, because they're hybrids, they're specially built, right? So they have these batteries, they have these different design specs and whatnot that go into it. So I'm assuming that they pre-ordered somebody else pre-ordered these vehicles, and Waymo just happened to get the deal breaker on it.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. The article goes: the original 600 test vehicles will be used to launch Waymo's ride-sharing service. We heard in January that Waymo was expanding its agreement with Chrysler for thousands of additional hybrid minivans, which will start being delivered in late 2018. Apparently, that was an understatement. Today, news emerged that the automaker will supply the autonomous car company with 62,000 of its family vehicles. We knew Waymo's existing fleet of 600 Chrysler Pacifica minivans it used for testing will be repurposed to launch its ride-hailing service in Phoenix later this year. The next city it will set up shop in is, unsurprisingly, the San Francisco Bay Area. In exchange for the flood of additional minivans, the revised partnership may include a licensing agreement for Waymo's self-driving technology to be implemented in Chrysler vehicles. Hmm, that's interesting. Now, what made this specific article um, stick out to you?
Well, we know you're a Chrysler guy.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
but what makes sense, what stood out to me was that it's one thing to buy maybe 100 vehicles, 200 vehicles, but 62,000. You
Mhm.
know, now you're talking about replacing buses, shuttles, because it doesn't. The van is not meant to hold one person or just two people. You're talking 5 and 6 people,
Yeah, the Pacifics are nice and roomy.
right? And they're hybrids. So the technology is there. The technology aspect of uh, being able to switch from gasoline to electric, and um, and the ability to have that human capacity inside of a vehicle like that means that this is serious business.
Hmm. Um, you mentioned the shuttles, and when you mentioned it, I automatically thought about the shuttles at airports. I I, I don't know why I automatically thought about that, but that can be autonomized. One of the first, one of the I don't want to say industries, but I don't know why I want to say industries, but one of the first ways of things to be autonomized by autonomous vehicles. In major city airports like JFK, LAX, O'Hare, uh, Dallas Fort Worth, Texas area airport. The little shuttles that go back and forth between terminals or nearby hotels, they can be autonomized. So that's if I'm saying if I'm not saying they are. This is just my thinking. Whoever's listening, if they are autonomized, that's a lot of people out of work right there. And if those go as planned, then whoever's looking at this technology say, well, okay, if that goes good, I want to autonomize my fleet. I want to autonomize my fleet. You see what I'm saying?
Well, it seems to me that Waymo will be the driving force behind autonomous based applications for passenger based vehicles. Because from the article states that Chrysler will adopt some of the technology into its new vehicles going forward from Waymo. So
Hmm.
this gives Chrysler a leg up, and it also gives Waymo a way into the market.
Google owns way more, right?
Yeah, just about the majority share of it.
Uh-huh.
I think SoftBank has a stake in
SoftBank.
yeah, SoftBank has a stake in another competitor to Waymo. But the main point that I'm making here is that we mentioned the shuttles from at the airport, but think about a senior citizen shuttle that
Ooh,
needs to take a senior citizen to their appointments or places that they typically wouldn't even have a vehicle.
yeah, that's a good point. And in Chicago, there's a Pace Paratransit where it's a ride sharing program, and it's already minivan, mainly minivans. It's the Dodge minivans, and they are already equipped to shuttle around for 5 people. You
Mhm.
know, they can. Oh my, ooh, then an Uber driver. Oh my god, this is this is really coming on strong. It's really coming on strong.
And if you use your imagination just for a second, you think about U-Haul and Penske, some of these truck rental places where people need to utilize them for moving their furniture and goods.
Hmm.
What's to say that Waymo doesn't get involved into the autonomous U-Haul truck portion of storage movable, right? Instead of you actually driving this big uh, uh, um, 20, 25 foot, 28 foot vehicle, you just load up the truck, and the truck goes to your next destination, and then you just follow the truck and just basically unload it yourself. That kind of takes the liability out of the driver operation portion, and then it creates efficiency because it knows which bridges that it can't fit under, so it takes a different route. If you look on YouTube, you see many videos of people with these commercial vehicles driving under bridges and
Yes,
tearing off the roof of it.
gotta
Just
replace
ridiculous
the
stuff that,
tires. Yeah, making
yeah,
traffic.
human error. Too many probabilities for human error. So uh, you take an application like Waymo and you apply it to something as a commercial fleet of vehicles like the Penske or the U-Haul trucks, then that definitely opens up another market.
Because we only just using it's two people just using our imagination. Because I'm thinking,
Mhm.
okay, I'm thinking about people that own transportation companies, and I'm trying to fit this into how they will operate. And then I thought about, okay, well, when you said the U-Haul, I was thinking about, okay, you have U-Haul and Penske and the companies that are likes of those. You go on their website, say, hey, I need a vehicle at this time, this date, blah blah blah, or within this block of time, and you pay for that block of time, and they just send you a vehicle out, and like you said, you load it up, it go to its destination, you follow it, and they unload it, and when they unload it, you let them know that you're done, and then they call the vehicle back. That is that's some futuristic stuff right there, and it's
Not
couple.
exactly futuristic because it's already happening now, right?
Yes, that's the mind blowing thing about it. Yeah, that's man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I need this. Okay, well, it's sending out now, and it comes. That's so efficient. That's
That's the
super.
world.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's the world we live in.
That
People
is,
think when we say 2020, by the time the next election comes around, it's going to be 600,000 plus jobs that are going to be gone because of automation. The clock is ticking.
and I get these emails from Labor Department of Labor, and it was saying how um, unemployment is at its lowest. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at the email, and I just think about our hangouts, and I just automatically just shook my head like, man, these people actually believe this. At Department of, let's see, Labor, what is it, unemployment statistics. Okay, I think this is the latest. Yeah, May 2018. Total non-farm payroll employment increased by 223,000 in May, and the unemployment rate edged down to 3.8%. Come on, no. And the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today. Employment continued to trend up in several industries, including retail trade. Oh my God, retail trade, healthcare, and construction. How, okay, obviously, I learned in my business class the unemployment rates, how they calculate it, are questionable to begin with. Then they saying the trend is trending up in retail trade. That's one of the major industries that stores are being closed. It's J.C. Penney, Macy's. Obviously, we know about Toys R Us. I think just about going out of business in Chicago. Carson Perry Scott's, and they're saying as of May 2018, employment is trending up in retail trade. And I don't know why I heard this. I think I heard it recently. Somebody say, well, okay, how much of these jobs, A, how much these jobs are paying, B, they're not full time. They're not full time jobs. And C, how long are these people being employed? You see, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're gonna have LTE, so limited uh, term employment, right? Seasonal employment. Those numbers are going to go up by depending on the holiday, right? Usually around Black Friday into Christmas is usually when you see the peak time of employment for that, and then after it drops off by January to May. Um, those numbers won't be the same in a few more months, or even this time next year. Like you said, J.C. Penney's closing, Sears, Kmart. There's really no reason to have these stores open with all that square footage. If you go to a mall, even anytime during the week, it's empty. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
really there. And a lot of this is due to the fact that social media has created a bimbo culture amongst most millennials, where everybody has their head in their phone when they're walking, not paying attention, not really caring about anything, not really going outside. They're sitting on YouTube, just completely disconnected from society, and they don't. In these malls and these stores that's within these malls are were part of this the fabric of socialization. So you don't really need these malls open, neither these stores as well, because people aren't really engaging with each other like that anymore.
Yeah, that's hmm, it's it's I'm understanding, like I said before, plenty of times. Well, I'm understanding it more, and I'm able to connect the pieces. Just like you said, we just using our imagination, and we just seeing the what 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 this can do. Uh, Turkey president says Uber is over. Okay. Uh,
Oh yeah. Everybody's going to a protectionist strategy where they're trying to protect their, their domestic economies from these what they consider juggernaut foreigners with their technology such as Lyft and Uber and um, Arcade City and those things. So, but with this whole Waymo thing, I can see the application or the use case of it being used for ambulance services, so inventory services.
mm,
You have a bunch of these Chrysler Pacificas in hybrid mode just cruising around the city waiting for the next call to come in, and it just goes there autonomously based on where the call was from and what the dispatch information that dispatch puts out. You may cut time because any other time you have the human element of a ambulance driver sitting maybe waiting for the next call to come in, whereas you can have these these Waymo based vehicles just floating around waiting for the next piece of data to come in to tell it to go to the next place, and it's usually within 30 to 45 seconds.
that's a good idea because now they don't have to pay people to um, just ride around town, and since they're hybrid, then the gas cost is will be lowered. I was looking, not looking, I wasn't looking. I was listening to a podcast, the Tim Ferriss show, and he was interviewing Steve Jurvetson, and he was talking about quantum computers, things to that element. And he was saying that Google, I'm just pointing this out because, excuse me, Google owns a good portion of Waymo, but Google is a number one, or they're up there in uh, quantum computers and ordering, I guess, trying to order or being interested in quantum computers. And how you're saying quantum computers, the scalability of quantum computers is mind blowing. And Google is interested in quantum computers as they get better and better and better. and it's
Right. China. Oh, go ahead.
no, sorry, and it seems like this stuff is just it's gonna come, it's gonna come, it's gonna come.
Well, now we only know 62,000 for right now. What happens when Ford has their own autonomous application as well, and they start ramping up some of their fleet of vehicles for commercial use, right? Because they stop producing, or they at least they claim that going forward they'll stop producing the subcompact cars such as your Fiestas and your Focus and your Tauruses and things of that nature. They're going to stop reproducing those or producing those for consumer use, but actually for commercial use, those vehicles will still be largely available. And a company like Waymo and or company such as Ford and GM, who already have their own internal design fabrics for autonomous vehicles, it's only a matter of time before you see the market just get flooded with like a million.
Yeah. Whew. Well, we have a new log on. How you doing, Nagon? How you doing today?
What's going on? What's going on, my brothers? How are y'all doing? I was just, I just chimed in. I was a little bit busy, but I then got a chance. I said, okay, I got the link. Let me jump in here and see what you guys were talking about. And I was looking at that email, you had sent out a little bit earlier, of what was going to be on the docket, and apparently, China's, autonomous bike, you know, they're producing their own kind of bicycles and all. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff coming out here, so I'm just kind of rolling with you guys right now, just getting up on a lot of this stuff as well, because I've got some catching up to do, I would say, as far as all of these new types of products kind of rolling through, and there's a lot going on. So to a large extent, I'm just kind of here just listening, on a lot of what you guys have to say, because apparently you guys are up on a lot of stuff. I certainly know about the hybrid vehicles and all that, but there's a lot of new stuff kind of coming out here, and that's new, and I'm just listening. I know you guys were talking about quantum computers coming, and that's Google that seems to be moving with that a lot faster. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast, Tim Ferriss show, and he was talking to Steve Jurvetson, and he was saying with the quantum computers, Google is one of the number one. Um, I forgot the word I used, but they're interested in
Hmm.
China basically has the world's fastest quantum computers right now, or supercomputers right now, practically because they had a bit of a head start. Usually, the United States is leading this, but when you design these computers, they have to be designed from the ground up, and United States designed theirs years ago. So China put out their latest quantum computing on the ground and in the air. So that the new satellite for cryptocurrencies is based on quantum computing. So it's
Okay.
able to
it.
do.
Whoa. Say what? The new satellite. Wait, throw that back. Throw that back in me again.
So China has a satellite that it put up some months ago for cryptocurrency transactions in order to get around the ISPs in the United States as well as other countries that would actually block these transactions.
When you say
So if you
satellite, you mean as in orbiting Earth satellite?
Yep, sits outside in space, but it also is based on quantum computing, so it can do all the transactions in the satellite itself and then beam the results back to you at the end. So what's happening is a lot of the SEC and these other regulatory bodies around the world, and from these first world countries like the European Union, the UK, in the United States, want to put a clamp down on cryptocurrency transactions without without the taxation. So if you have the satellite in the sky or in space doing the transactions for you and then beaming the results back down to your phone, then who can really stop you now? The only real way you're going to stop something like that is you send a missile up there and go take out that satellite. But I don't think anybody's that gutsy at this point right now. It's not really critical. It's not a critical satellite that can cause military warfare capabilities. But when you talk about banking and finance, that's a thorn in the side of the Rothschilds and the those banksters, those Zionist banksters.
Now, to my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, but quantum computers need to be cooled down at a temperature that's below absolute zero or something.
Or no, well, you can't get below absolute zero, but you can get you can't ever get to absolute zero, but you can get so close to it that it produces a different type of how would I say you produce what's called a Bose-Einstein condensate. And what that does is it's almost a different state of matter where now you can actually slow a light beam down that may come through where light travels at 186,000 miles per second. You can now slow this thing down to speeds of a few hundred feet per second, and then it could speed right up so you can put that much more information, elongate it out, and you can just do a lot. You can just do a lot more, or you can get a lot more volume in there than you could with a regular computer. That's the key of keeping the temperature down here very low. So I certainly know about the about keeping them very cool, because I was getting ready to get in on that in a second, but you just jumped right in there and beat me to it. But yeah, I was looking at the technology behind a lot of this, and this condensate it's right above absolute zero. You actually start to have a kind of a different state of matter where things actually operate differently, and you can do certain things. So the key of slowing down light and all this that we didn't know you could do, that now you can do. They add that to a quantum computer, and the amount of performance, the amount of memory, and so forth that you can get out of there it's beyond almost anything that that we could think about before. But this was actually something that Einstein and an Indian physicist figured out over 100 years ago, well over 100 years ago. So kind of interesting, but that's the key that drives these quantum computers. This Bose-Einstein condensate that you're able to produce at just above the absolute zero mark.
Well, most data.
Were you guys aware of this at all, or no?
Well, we just start talking about it. Go ahead, Mike.
There you go. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I used to work in data centers early in my career, and when you have these quantum computers inside there, that place is already refrigerated anyway, so it's already temperature controlled, climate controlled, and most of the quantum computers are already using some kind of cryogenic cooling method, or from the recent stuff I saw is just antifreeze in a liquid cooling solution.
Yeah, well, focus one from my understanding, the quantum computer itself is not big. It's it's small as a chip, but it's the cooling mechanism
That's it.
That makes it look big.
That's exactly right. To bring, because if you're talking about absolute zero coming close to it, you're talking about 313 degrees below Kelvin, so it's something like 600 and something degrees below zero. It's some real ridiculous temperature that you really, you actually, because absolute zero means this is where all state of matter, everything stops moving. There's no movement in anything, and you just can't. We haven't been able to get to that point. We just can't seem to. You can't get to that point. Even the coldest areas in space that we see does not get down to absolute zero. You can approach it, Kind of like infinity. You can maybe, get as close to infinity as possible, but you never hit it. I guess I don't know, but this it doesn't seem that we can get to that temperature, but we can approximate it and get it and get very close to it. And this condensate, as I mentioned, is what all the is what um, all the electrical transactions go through it. The binary and everything else like that, which is all comes through light, through it's these are just light pulses, and you can slow the light pulses down, and you can ultimately store a lot more information on that than you can with regular microchip technology that's not in this supercomputing type of phase where it's being cooled at this extremely low temperature, which would permit you to do some of these things that I had mentioned before. Um, but that's kind of where you're at with respect to these systems, and there's no question about it. That's why you have that size on them because of the cooling mechanisms.
Mm.
It's pretty awesome technology. I mean, it really is. This is awesome stuff. But what I think is even more awesome is the fact that this was known about, back in 1905. You know,
Mm.
Well, some of the alternative methods that they've been using is trying to deploy them to the to the North Pole.
right,
So because
right,
it
right.
would require less
Energy.
well, not less
Let's say
energy, but less
cool.
complication and design for
That's
making
right.
it colder,
Mm.
That's
for
right.
cooling it down. So
That's
so they've
exactly
been
right.
putting it up there in Greenland, putting up
Yeah.
centers in Greenland and up to the northern parts of Canada.
And that's the reason I brought it up was because you said they launched it in space, and I would presume that presents some of the same easy, same situations as put it in upper Canada or
Well, it would even be better because you hit it right in the head because the temperatures there in space, in the space
freezing.
vacuum, it's super freezing. It approaches absolute zero. It approaches it. So if you were to take a space suit off and put your hand out there in space, you would
Automatically freeze.
it would turn to stone. It would turn literally damn near harder than stone and instantaneously. So that's how cold space is. Space is cold as fuck. So yeah, so that's why a supercomputer could operate um, very well in that environment, um, awesomely.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
and even with fluid dynamics, where where usually if you like were to produce a raindrop where you kind of hit and you look at the crown kind of look, it's all the stuff is perfect, it's perfectly shaped and formed, you know under these zero g under these close to absolute zero um temperatures with respect to these superfluids that can stay liquid at exceedingly cold temperatures. They become they operate almost like the ideal fluid in this underneath those conditions. So there's a lot of technical advantages that you can have with that. But as far as information storage, um, and speed and control of speed of of the computing is at a level that we can't you don't have with the regular microchip. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this next article is about California, our favorite state. California will allow autonomous cars to pick up passengers, but the rides have to be free of charge. It says this is by Lori Locklear of Engadget on June 1st. California is launching two pilot programs that will allow autonomous vehicles to pick up passengers in the state. The San Francisco Examiner reports one will let companies pick up passengers with their self driving cars as long as a safety driver is behind the wheel. Okay. The other will allow for passenger pickup without a driver in the autonomous vehicle, though the company will be required to have humans monitoring the cars remotely. I am pleased to launch these pilot programs as part of the evolution of the passenger transportation system in California, California Public Utilities Commissioner Diane Randolph said in a statement. Our state is home to world class innovative companies, and I look forward to these services being offered with high level of safety that we can expect from our passenger service providers. Excuse me. In April, state officials began accepting applications from companies looking to test their autonomous vehicles on state roads without a driver behind the wheel. At least two companies, including Waymo, applied for such a permit. Arizona has also allowed driverless cars to operate on its roads, and Waymo is gearing up to launch a driverless taxi service in the state. Uber autonomous vehicles have been transporting passengers in Arizona since February with safety drivers on board. California's new pilot programs require certain permits to be obtained, and the Public Utilities Commission decided that companies participating in the program can't charge for the rides they provide. Randolph said the move was made in order to differentiate these rides from other modes of transportation in an effort to encourage riders to be more mindful of their experiences and provide critical feedback to the Commission and the permit holders. Other program rules prohibit driverless cars from operating within airports, okay, and limit riders to being 18 years of age or older. Okay, Mike. Now, what made this article stand out to you?
Uh, because
Well,
they're going forward with they're going forward with the process, but only free, right? So in order to generate, the welcoming of these type of vehicles, people are very apprehensive. They're like, well, there's nobody in there. What happens if I get locked in? All these questions and apprehensions about getting into these vehicles in the first place is now going to be null and void because all your daredevil millennials who are like, man, this is awesome. I'm going to get in there. It's going to take me to my destination. Those are the people that's going to be the drivers behind, well, not the drivers, so to speak, but the driving force of adoption for these vehicles. Now,
Mhm.
I think the other day I saw a news posting about an Uber driver shooting one of his passengers, one of
What?
his riders. Yeah, that was on the news the other day. Um,
yeah, yeah. So,
when,
so
yeah, when you have situations like this and people are like, oh man, that's an autonomous vehicle. I don't know if I really trust it. Well, you got an Uber driver that just put a bullet in somebody's head.
Uh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that'll stop a lot of that. But if they're not going to charge you for the ride, how how is there going to be compensation for the ride? How will that be done? That's paid up front, I guess, or credit card. How's that done?
That's a pilot. It's a pilot, so they don't expect any revenue from it. They just expect to see how many people are willing to get in it, even at the price of free. So if people are willing to get in it for free, how much more would they be willing to pay to actually have a a shuttle or a vehicle like that come pick them up? This could be efficient for districts that in certain states that don't have enough revenue to pay bus drivers or maintain buses. You may have autonomous vehicles just come by and pick the kids up for school and drop them off, pick them up, and then drop them back off home.
I've heard there've been some accidents with that, or some people have been hit already with some of these trial vehicles. I believe. I've heard there's been some issues, but I guess the way they're rolling out the technology, I'm sure they'll solve some of those issues. But I think getting over that fear of just something driving that there's no driver is a little scary. I still think that's gonna take a little idea for people to get used to, I guess.
Yeah. But like Mike said, when first adopters start coming in, such as millennials and Generation X, they start doing
Right.
it after a while, it's just gonna become part of the background. So right now, yeah, people are gonna be apprehensive. It's like, when you were younger, computers first came out, you hear, the older folks saying, "Well, I don't know about this." Then you was like, "Oh, come on, grandma. It's easy. Only thing you gotta do is this." Well, after a while, it's just computers. If it's almost like when people say, "Well, I don't have a computer at the house," you may look at them funny, but they still got the computer in their hand as in a smartphone. So
That's right.
it's become part of the landscape now.
Well, it's because the difference between having a computer in these vehicles is that computers now are a utility. You
Mm.
need a computer to fill out a job application. You need a computer to have access to certain pieces of information that's
Right.
not readily available in your yellow pages and your white pages and books now, because information changes so frequently. The only way you can access it is through a computer. So it becomes a utility, as well as your internet service provider becomes a utility, and Google is now considered a utility. So if you want to, have access to information, you may need to Google, because it's a household name, and it serves as a purposeful utility within the household. So you can't have the denial of these services or these utilities to human beings within this country now, because it's so integrated to the way of life. Now, these vehicles that are going to start coming on board, um, maybe 10 and 15, I wouldn't say 10 to 15 years, but maybe 20 years from now, when they become all electric, because as long as there's gas, somebody has to pump the gas into the car itself. The car's not going to pump itself. Um, but when they go all electric, then these vehicles will become a urban utility for people to use for their daily life. It will be mandatory that they have these vehicles out, autonomously running around, regardless of what the software glitches may be.
I often wondered that, since cars are going electric, the state of gas stations in the future.
From the stuff that I've the events I've attended, it sounds to me that gas stations will largely transfer over into utility stations for electricity.
Oh, so if you're on a road, then you'll, instead of going to a quote unquote gas station, you'll go to an electric station.
Uh, Pretty much everywhere that allows a car to pull up into and become stationary and idle will be considered a place for utility, right? Electricity will be an application for utility for these vehicles. So most of your parking garages in urban areas, at least in where I live in the city of Boston, they have at least 24 charging stations ready available for these electric vehicles. Same thing with Whole Foods. There's at least 4 or 5 electric stations that you can pull up into and actually charge your vehicle for free.
Do they have to charge? I mean, pay for that? Or is it? Oh, you know what? You just said free. I don't.
No, you're not allowed to resell electricity from the grid.
But what if you have your own solar panels or whatever? You can charge for that.
You could, yeah, you could charge for that, but as long as it's coming from the grid, you can't resell the grid's electricity.
Hmm, I see. I see. I see. Says.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Any comments on this, Nagone?
No, no, just kind of, just just kind of listening to that. I was actually looking at a little bit more. I was going online looking at a little bit more of this, of some of the quantum mechanics here, because this quantum computer stuff. I think I don't want to change the subject. I'm just saying, this is, man, this is where everything's going to be. This is where everything is going to be in a few years. Everything, and you know how we, how what's the best way to really, to really take advantage of this. And certainly when it comes to cryptocurrencies and these kind of things, and being able to really deal on that quantum level, this is some this is going to be some earth shattering stuff. This is you guys follow where I'm coming from on this, or
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is why I encourage black men to get into STEM, and
yeah,
which is why I
very much
encourage
so,
them to get into computer engineering.
very much so, very much so.
Now,
This is it.
question:
I'm sorry, go
What
ahead.
does computer? Excuse me. What does computer engineering entail?
Computing engineering.
So computer engineering in modern terms would be the computer science and electronic or electrical engineering aspect of computers. So it's kind of a two-part breakdown of how computer science applies to electrical engineering overall.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, and you look at, you know, you're really looking at, you know, what drives these systems. Are you talking about, the kind of transistors based? So now they're talking about superpositions and quantum bits and all this kind of stuff now that would be replaced with some of the transistors and some of the electrical as, aspects of computing that it looks like this shit's just gonna change it. So the technology behind this is, I suspect it's complex. You got to know your your mathematics and stuff. But I think once you get a good handle on this would be a lot of fun to learn. I do have somewhat of a science background, so I'm fairly decent, decent in math and physics. I have some very good understanding of these subjects, but this shit here is with quantum algorithms and all this is a different change. So the engineers who would be getting in on this would be dealing with it would be dealing with some paradigm shifts. Mike, are you an engineer, or what's your technical background?
I'm a cybersecurity engineer.
Cybersecurity. Okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And what kind of systems are you dealing with?
Security automation.
All right.
So I'm involved in cybersecurity automation.
All right. All right. Yeah. So you're in a technical game. All right. That's cool. Where'd you go to school?
I went here locally, so I went to trade school at first because I hated school, period. But yeah, I was one of those cats I can't stand school. But yeah, I went to trade school, and then I went and did my my undergrad, and then I did my grad at BU, Boston University.
Be okay. Yeah, my brother went to Boston College. He went to BC.
Oh, he's an Eagle.
Yeah. Up there, running up and down that very long. What do we call that place?
Carmath.
Carmath. Yeah. Know the area. Know the area fairly soon. Yeah, I went to Syracuse. So I went to Syracuse undergrad.
Oh, you Orange man.
Yeah, very much so.
You
Very
45? Okay. You got it.
So yeah, went to the Q's.
Mhm.
But anyway, okay, gentlemen, go ahead, move forward.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
taking a lot of this in. I like this stuff. Damn, this stuff needs to be talked about in a wider, almost in a wider arena, because brothers are just
Maybe it'll catch
we
on.
need to be getting up on, huh?
Maybe it'll catch on.
Maybe, right? Yeah, I hear you.
Now, another thing Mike sent out was the Quant Qingdao. Well, I know I'm butchering that name, but the smart tires.
Qingdao.
Qingdao, really? Okay,
Yeah.
Qingdao.
Yeah.
Smart tires. Okay, learned something new. I'm not going to play the YouTube video. I found an article. I'm not going to read the article. It's pretty long, but basically it was saying that there's RFID chips that are say baked into the tire, which allows it's a form of Internet of Things where it allows continuous monitoring of the tire and can and these RFID chips can inform the company if of defects of defects, in terms of defects of if the tires, if more of these, if a lot of these tires that were made in the same factory in the same day or same batch are are showing this type of defect, then that means this type of problem, then that means okay, they may be a defective tire, call them back, or if the tire is malfunctioning, then they can tell the driver, hey, bring your car in because it may be, you may run into some problems in the future, and so forth and so forth. So these smart tires sound very good. They sound good. I would say that they sound good. So go ahead, Mike.
Wow.
They sound good until some some loser tries to steal them from you, right? Yeah, I think yeah. Until you put 20s on it, right? Yeah, I think this is a good technology. I think this is a good application as well. The RFID portion is really what interests me because I'm familiar with IoT, which is Internet of Things, and when you start thinking about RFID components and where you can place them, I think about handicapped people who have visual impairments, who are visually handicapped, who approach traffic lights but can't determine whether or not the traffic light is red or green and whether or not it's safe to walk. What happens if you attach a device to this visually impaired person who can't normally get across the road safely? What if they had an RFID implant or some kind of adapter on their arm, such as a smartwatch or something to that effect, that allows them to approach the traffic light, and the traffic light changes based on the the navigation of this human being. So the traffic light allows this person to have free a free walkway for the next 30 to 40 seconds, or how much time it takes for this person to get across the street.
Interesting.
Wow. Wow.
You
It's
want to go?
interesting. Yeah, what's interesting, even if you speak about, you brought something up that was kind of interesting about supposedly they steal the tires.
Oh yeah, you can get them back. Well, I don't know if you
Yeah,
want that.
you should be able to get it back, but there should even be maybe a program in them for if somebody steals them and they're coming off without maybe a code being pressed into this thing at some. I don't know how it would determine that they were being stolen, but maybe those tires would lose air or do something where they would render them non-functional
Like
as well.
like the functioning vehicles might steal it. Then you have the app on your phone, and you can call the police and let them know it's over here.
Well, the app wouldn't be
Yeah,
on the phone. The app wouldn't be on the phone. The app would be on the car itself. So because the tires have to talk to the car, not the phone.
right,
Okay.
right, right,
Okay.
right. So somehow maybe there would be some way of even stopping those tires from operating. Usually that would either be through air
Yeah,
being
deflate
let out of
themselves. Hmm.
and then you can't inflate it unless you have a very specific code to put in there or something of that nature, something that would. I mean, there's always somebody that's trying to beat the technology, so they would have some
Yeah.
counter to that. But what type of system could you have to maybe shut that down? That would be interesting. The applications on this seem to be extensive. You can do a lot of. Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead, Mike.
if the IoT aspect of it is would need some kind of blockchain technology,
Right.
whether it's Ethereum smart contract type of deal where if you're shipping a whole bunch of tires, if you're Michelin, if you're Goodyear, um, then what happens is you get knockoffs from different countries because they're trying to sell the same tire for cheap. And you, unbeknownst to you as a consumer, you may end up buying a knockoff tire, and you drive on a
Yeah.
tire that eventually explodes on you within the first 1,000 miles because it was cheap and it was a knockoff. These
Yeah.
RFID tags could reduce the amount of bootlegging and knockoff
Yeah.
reproduction.
Yeah. 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 I could definitely see that. So you would have a definite way of saying that this is an original, and we keep the quality integrity of these tires in place and knock out the counterfeiters to a large extent. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. That would be
Mhm.
because the counterfeiting game is heavy. In fact, it was pretty funny. I play golf, so I was, I had bought a set of golf clubs, pings, and they had to be fitted clubs specifically for you. Um, and the guy that was coming over who was selling me my clubs and all. I said, I want to make sure these clubs are good. He goes, well, we really have to watch the quality because there are a lot of knockoff, you know, golf clubs and stuff that get into the market and people don't even know. They think they're buying a set of of legitimate pings or TaylorMades or whatever, and they're knockoffs, and people don't even know it. So I was like shocked about knockoff golf clubs. So I'm saying if your clubs can get knocked off, damn, they're doing that with everything else like tires and all that, and that's scary because like you said, those tires could blow up after 1,000 miles, something else like that, and that could mean somebody's life or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. Knockoff tires. That's pretty
Yeah,
that's pretty scary.
I bring I bring that up because during the Obama administration, there was a random flooding of the market coming out of China, where they flooded the U.S. market with these cheap Chinese tires. I don't know what exactly the brand was. However, there were tires exploding all over the place in major urban centers where people will go to these side tire shops, these bodegas, and buy these cheap tires, and then they slap them on their car because they're too cheap to go buy some authentic ones. And they're driving to hit a pothole at a high rate of speed.
Boom.
Tire explodes,
Kaboom.
car flips. Yeah, person is injured. Now who's really liable for this? And these RFID tags will lead all the way back to the manufacturer and give meaningful information to file a lawsuit or to determine what the bad batch was and things of that nature, production
W-
batches and stuff like that.
Were these knockoff tires being sold underneath, like say, like a name of Michelin or something else like that? Were they using other company names, or were they coming up with some bullshit tire name that nobody heard of?
They were like very the enunciation of the name would be similar to like a Michelin. It would say like Michelin or something like that. Instead of saying Michelin, it say Michelin or something like that. But Obama actually put a clamp down on that during his administration and stopped those tires from coming into the United States. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be sold through Mexico and being brought back in.
Right. There's repackaging coming underneath another country, man. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that would make sense. Pretty scary. That's pretty scary stuff.
That's interesting though.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Now, this last one. Show my screen again. I'm not again. This is another video. I'm not going. It's a long video, but it's good. And go to the part that I was looking at. It was these autonomous
Chinese, the Chinese
the bike.
bicycles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That when she was walking and the bike was just trotting along with her, that was pretty cool.
Incredible. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. And it's able to find a center of gravity. It's able to ride along. That was pretty. I don't know if I can find just I think it's way back here. But that was pretty cool. Yeah. And at this shot, she's actually walking, and this rider is going along with her. That's pretty cool.
That is.
Now,
That
what made you get this one? That was pretty cool.
That's part one of a long series that's coming out this year for artificial intelligence in China. If you actually watch the whole video, they talk about China is fighting to be the number one in artificial intelligence. Russia under Putin in March talked about investing millions, if not billions of dollars into their millennials to get them up to speed on artificial intelligence. The United States is
Right.
really, really lagging behind China and Russia and the rest of some of the European states.
Right.
And this is the type of the U.S. is lagging behind. We don't have the infrastructure available. China already has the infrastructure up and going.
U.S. is starting to become a third world country in terms of technology.
Yeah, you go to Chicago, you go to places like Flint, Michigan, you would think it's a third world country.
You know what it is, you know, and I'm not gonna get on this for too long, but you know, you have the super rich who really just want things, you know, just strictly for themselves, and they're not really helping to disseminate a lot of this stuff to a lot of the people. So a lot of people are ignorant, stupid, and have no, you know, and a lot of people just not getting into this stuff. We're not exposing this to people, and you can see with this. I think this greed aspect is hurting us because that's holding us back. And racism and all that. We don't want black people to have good schools. We don't want these people to have good schools. We don't want to have, and all that crap going on. It's definitely slowing us down. And you just said it. You know, the Russians and them are putting all kind of money into their millennials and making sure that they are getting into this stuff. That means the next generation is going to surpass the generation of kids that we have here. And if you get the technological short end of the stick, you're gonna end up losing. So I kind of don't know what we're doing. I'm not really I'm not understanding, you know, why we're playing our game this way. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense.
There's a quote. Well, that's not really a quote, but some people said in Chicago there's a major avenue in Chicago called Cicero, and some people say, you know, the white people were so busy keeping the blacks off Cicero that the Hispanics moved in through the back door.
Yeah.
And that's just to say, you know, as you said, you know, I don't doubt that, you know, it may not be a full concerted effort, but it's some type of effort to make sure uh, there's no real traction gained in the black community. But you keep doing that, and you're allowing other people to come in through the back door, and all
It's
of a sudden you down here by us. Well, you down here with us.
Well,
because they're not smart. These guys, they're at the end of the day, they're they're stupid. They're short sighted, racist, and exceedingly stupid. And this is hurting us. Just not now, but 30 years down the line. And that could mean that you could even be technologically invaded, and your country can be taken over.
Mhm.
I mean, this is what's on the line, and I'm thinking about it. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I've talked about this quite a few times, either on BGS Hangout or this Hangout as well. That Putin, Putin had a declaration. I think during his inauguration that whoever controls AI controls the world, and that's why there's a concerted effort for him to invest into Russian millennials to make sure that they're up to speed. The problem is that there's a digital literacy and technical literacy issue within the black community, as well as a skills gap in the United States largely. We don't produce enough STEM graduates, and the STEM graduates that we do the STEM graduates that we do produce are sunken down and weighted down with student loan debt that they can't do anything anyways. So part of the issue is racism, like you said. The other half of the issue is that we don't promote it in our own community. We don't see the value in black. We don't see the value in black male innovation. You know, somebody sitting at home in their garage, you know, tinkering with computers and stuff like that's not cool to black people. You know, for white people, that's really, really cool. That's how you got Silicon Valley.
But that's part of the racism. You know, that's part of the racism too. And what I mean by the racism is, you know, we bought into some of this other bullshit that these guys are pushing, and we've we've adopted that. So
Mhm.
now we've adopted, what I say, negative or kind of a black redneck kind of mentality here, and we're not looking at to elevate ourselves. I mean, yeah, but it seems to me that we, you know, that we're gonna have to wake up because it seems like these African kids who are coming here, um, who are coming in with a different value system,
Mhm.
because that whole family structure and reverence for the parents and all that they come over here intact with that. So looks like to me, they're going to be the ones who are going to be getting up on a lot of this. We can see it, with them going in, getting into all kind of Ivy League schools and these technical schools and kind of rocking it. So, many of us, the African American community, we're gonna have to adapt. We're gonna have to adapt, or we're gonna be moved to the side. Moved to the side. Even further. But yeah, we're gonna have to adapt a much more technically uh, advanced type of thinking. And I've been saying that for quite a while. And even with my tutorial programs, because I work with a 5-star tutorial program here in the city. One of my friends who I actually met in the gym some years ago was got a grant to work with some of the public schools, and we've been also working with the children's zone there in Harlem to help to tutor tutor kids. It's a tutorial program, and I volunteer. I try to do 2 days a week, but just with my work schedule, sometimes I'm not able to get in there as much. But I try to do 2 days a week tutoring, and that's what we do. We put real effort into science projects. Like currently, right now, I'm doing a science project that's going to be due on the 30th with my kids, with my group, and these are 9 to 11-year-old kids, and because I think that's where it needs to be, and we push that very heavily. And literally, you guys will not believe this, but I'm doing a project right now with kids, showing them showing them the difference between Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics with respect to the space-time continuum, and showing how gravity really is just not, the gravitational equations um, that Newton came up with, but they're more Einsteinian, and it deals with the warping of space and how and how that works. And basically, we've taken a rubber sheet, put it on 4 different posts, glue that to the ground, and then take a bowling ball, put it in the middle of this rubber sheet. It actually evaginates in the middle. That's the sun. And then I have some cue balls off of an old pool table that I had that I'm using as planets. And you could take one of them that's not taped down, just kind of roll it around the sheet, and you'll see the balls will roll, and it'll slowly roll towards the center of where the sun is, technically where the sun is, but that imagination, or that warping of that sheet that brings those balls down to the center, to where the hole where that sun is actually space time. And these kids are picking this up. They're picking this up at 9 and 10 years old. Our kids, black kids, they're
Hmm.
understanding this rather complex, almost abstract type of understanding of kind of how, not so much just Newtonian physics, but it's also it's actually Einsteinian physics and the warping of space time, because with greater mass you have, it actually warps more space, and these kids are actually understanding this. It's pretty deep. That's what we're working on right now. So, all right,
Uh,
10-year-old
yeah,
kids, go ahead.
now I was just going to say that we had this discussion last week about black people getting into space. That's something I brought up, that
Yeah,
IT is fine, right? The information technology aspect is fine, but India is a powerhouse in terms of IT because they work at such a low wage, and they work so many hours that people in America can't compete against that, because you only work 8 hours. They work 18 hours or 16 hours.
they
You
were,
just can't
and
compete
plus,
against that.
out of the schools that they're pushing, the smartest kids, they're really pushing them hard with this.
Right.
University of Hyderabad in India. That shit
Hmm.
is like that shit is like that shit is like MIT, bro. It's like
Hmm. Yeah.
MIT, and these kids are rolling with it. By the time they're in eighth grade, they're dealing with calculus. They're on this. So by the time the average American student may deal with this in the 11th and 12th grade, these kids have already been on it, man, since they were middle, middle school, and I believe that's why I can talk. That's why I'm saying fuck it. I'm not buying that you have to have this huge long term education to try to get to some of the higher concepts in mathematics and so forth. You could start dealing with these kids at 9, 10, 11 years old, and these kids are understanding it. They are
Right.
understanding it now.
Right.
All right.
Right. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm a mentor in the NISB, which is National Society of Black Engineers, and so I know what you're talking about. We talk about this stuff all the time, that the boys learn differently than the girls, and they want physical, hands-on education rather than to read some books. So we have to kind of make it digestible for boys to actually learn from. But the reason why I brought up the whole space exploration portion of it is because that's where the future is going in terms of jobs, right? You think about
That's right.
the manufacturing of satellites and space shuttles and gear for space exploration. Then you think about the research and development aspect. You think about the coding of scripting of computer languages that need to go in. The amount of telescopes and facilities that have to be built. This is that in itself would create 100,000 jobs for Black people in the Black community overnight if you had the human resources to do it.
It would do it instantaneously, and and people would learn quick. You got people that would learn very quickly, but see, once again, a lot of that's being held back from us because they certainly don't want you to get up on some of this stuff. But that's what you're talking about. It is correct. I can tell you, young Black kids are smart as fuck. They are smart. They are smart. They
Mhm.
are incredibly smart. That little peanut running down the street you see, or you might see in the neighborhood running around, put him or her in the right environment. These kids are freaking brilliant. They are brilliant.
Hey,
Once again, go ahead.
um, Damiette asks if there's talk of small aircrafts to move people, such as tiny helicopters.
They have space. They have not
Yeah,
space drones, but they have drones in China that they was testing a few months ago. Autonomous drones. The videos on YouTube. The drones are being cleared now for as passenger vehicles.
yeah, and plus you have these little gyrocopters that are produced, and these gyro cars actually that have been built literally since the 80s that actually fly around, that we have models of them now that can actually fly and do this, but they've been holding them back for the last 20 to 25 years because I guess with the whole traffic and NTSB and all this stuff like this, they don't want to deal with some of this as an issue. But these vehicles exist and they've been around for at least 20 years, believe it or not.
Exactly, and it's the regulatory bodies that don't want to, because there's no way to actually manage smaller vehicles. You can manage a Boeing Dreamliner, but
That's
you
right.
can't really manage 1,000 vehicles flying around the sky at once. That's just impossible.
In fact, they've actually developed a extraordinarily wonderful, what I call wonderful, a jetpack where you can put that on your back. You can lift up. It's got a gas. It's got a fuel cell in there and the whole deal where you could fly you from somewhere about 60 miles. You could just put this on your back, literally turn the jets on, fly up in the air. It's directional with directional nozzling on the packs now, and you could fly in the air, flying around with this, with basically a harness and an engine, hooked up to you, and you could fly around. You could actually fly around successfully, no problem, no problem. Fly you 60 miles, no problem.
Well, one of the companies, I forget the name off the top of my head, but they basically are looking to utilize blockchain in these I guess driverless small passenger based planes that Diamante is talking about. And the blockchain aspect is supposed to manage all of this from end to end. I think I posted the video maybe a few weeks ago they were talking about this, but basically they figured out the security aspect from a blockchain standpoint. But what happens when you have a strong gust of wind or some turbulence? You know, a big Boeing or Airbus plane can handle turbulence, but what happens when you have a smaller base device such as a
Hmm.
minivan or something like that that has wings? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Because
well, well
driving a minivan on the expressway, not even a minivan, but just a regular van with a higher van on the expressway with in flat fields, man, that thing is you have to put in some real muscle to control that steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I would also think that almost like with the jet fighter or anything else that you would have computers in there, kind of doing a lot of the adjustments for you as you fly and move. Um, to really help you to adjust instead of you just counting on you to make the right corrections. You might have a computer in there that may help to make these adjustments as you fly as well, kind of like we have in some of the high performance jet aircraft that are built on a naturally kind of unstable aerodynamic system, so you can move and have all these funky moves, but yet the computers balance, you know, stabilization of the wings and how the wings move and how the engine gives thrusts at various at various times and so forth to really help the plane to stay stable. And if there's some instability that happens since the plane is built with a naturally unstable um, a platform, then it can make very quick adjustments and adjust to an unstable environment and then stable out very quickly. I would suspect that with these vehicles as well, that they should have some of that technology and invested in. And we're talking about, this is not new technology. This is old technology. This is 60s type of stuff. To apply that now. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that sport pilot planes, if you ever look those up, those are your Cessnas, your
Right.
Cessna
Yep.
120s. Those planes actually have parachutes built into them, and they also have some of the technology that you're talking about in them, in case something does go wrong, whether the prop stops spinning or the engine stalls, the parachute pops out up the top of the plane and basically lowers the plane down. But you really don't have any control over the descent. So you don't have any
Yeah,
idea where you're
because
going to be.
that's
You
true.
got a
I
new
mean,
Yeah, what's
drop
up,
in.
guys? How are you guys doing?
hey
What's up,
man, what's
Gravity?
what's, what's going on? What's going on?
What's going on, man?
Not bad. Before you go on, I was wondering, so what do you think about people's acceptance? Because airplanes have had, autopilot for, I don't know, I guess like since the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
but no one really would trust their Boeing to be completely autonomous, at least for now. How do you think is the social gauge right now? Do you think people are ready?
Yeah,
Or
I think people would be. I think people would be ready. There is some fear, but people would be ready now. One thing we talk about the Boeing aircraft, and what most people don't know. And I remember I used to hang out, down in Brazil, and we used to hang out at this one club, and I would see a lot of the pilots come, that were flying the Continental, airplanes and all that. We would all sit down and be partying and hanging out and stuff. And these pilots were really funny, but they would tell you that the majority of the time you were actually flying, these planes were actually on autopilot anyway. So you were being flown on autopilot, and the pilot was just sitting there. You might have been laying back taking a nap or something, and the plane was already flying on its own and making adjustments on autopilot. So this has been going on a long time. The only time the pilots really engage is if they come in through exceedingly, bad weather or something, and certainly during landings, of which the plane could actually auto land itself in so many ways now today. So
What
so it's been doing that for a while. So can we sell it that way? Can it be sold that way? I believe it can, as more and more people get some faith in it. But But I think there's a sales program to be done to get people to feel more comfortable about it. But I think that could be done. We were just kind of talking about that a little bit before you came here, but that's my belief. So I think the saleability is there. Anyway, go ahead.
You would have to get people to accept driverless vehicles first before you can get them to accept a driverless, sport pilot plane going forward. Because if people are apprehensive about getting into a car,
sport pilot plane, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that's what it's called. If people are apprehensive about getting inside of a Waymo vehicle that's going to actually be on the ground, they'd be really extremely apprehensive about getting into one that's in the sky, right, in the air. So you have to kind of walk them. You have to walk humans by their hands and one step at a time. So I don't know.
There's already a lot of pushback on driverless cars. I've just been. This is not scientific, but I've just been asking people, what do you think about if driverless cars? And it seems, at least to me, split like 70-30. 70% wouldn't get in a driverless car, 30% would. Do you think that's just that? Obviously not scientific.
Because
it's just my
because humans require other humans to interact with, and when they don't see a human being on the other end, then what happens is they pull back. And if you look at some of these quote unquote sex dolls, right? You look at how human they are, how human, some of the features that they have are extremely human. That's what makes it acceptable to the person engaging with it. And the same thing goes for these robots that are at these these banks and these hospitals and stuff. Like if you watch the whole entire video that we posted, you'll see that even the kids are interacting with the robot that they use to authenticate themselves to get into school. But the robot is so close to being a human that it makes it acceptable to them. So not having a physical body inside of a vehicle makes humans very apprehensive. It's just human nature.
Instead of having like a driverless car per se, you just have a robot driving you everywhere, or a robot built into a car, or something like that. Is that what you're getting at?
Not necessarily, right? Because when people watch Knight Rider, they were like, "Oh, Kit, that's so awesome, that's dope." They wanted to go out and get Kit too, to the point where they put some little red LEDs on the front of their car that went from left to right, trying to mimic it. But when it really came down to really getting inside of a car that didn't have a human being in it, the human nature aspect says, I have to reject this just because this isn't natural.
Good point.
Okay.
You were going to say something, Noah? I think Noah's driving.
Oh, no. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were just getting into it. That's all.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that you bring that up, because the article that I sent out actually talks about picking up, people for free inside these driverless vehicles from Waymo. And Waymo already ordered 62,000 just this year alone. What's going to happen next year when it doubles their their request?
And in 4 years, and and you know what? And that coincides with what people are saying. Well, in 5 to 10 years, this all is just gonna be, in your face.
Yeah, that's for
But
sure.
to go towards the acceptance thing, I think people overestimate, I should say underestimate humans' ability to adapt to technology. I remember I was watching this documentary on Papua New Guinea, I think it was, or somewhere around that area. And these are people who were before then completely, unknown. A lot of their stuff they were unknown to the outside world.
I know.
So they didn't have any of they're kind of like in the Stone Age technology. And then I think it was Australians or New Zealanders or the British. Once they got there, within like a decade or so, everyone had like TVs, and they were like watching themselves from their first interaction with white people when they first got there. and they're just kind of like, laughing and joking. Oh, we didn't know any of this stuff, but now they're using all these advanced technologies that are like from the point of Stone Age, using woods and spears and that kind of stuff to guns and cars. So they were able to adapt to it extremely fast. So I think people will also be able to adapt to this kind of technology as well.
Yeah,
Well,
I
because the
think so.
technology now is intuitive, right? You give a child an iPad at 5 and 6 years old. I mean, even at 3 years old, I think BGS talks about his grandson being able to pick up an iPad and just use it because
Yeah.
the software layout and the whole GUI, the graphic user interface, is so
Yep.
intuitive. Even a child can pick it up. So I see your point to that extent, but when it comes to driverless vehicles, it's a little different. People are going to be more apprehensive because they require some kind of human interaction with a highly liable system that's in place.
We
I
got
think
another
people
drop
will.
in. How
I
you
think.
doing, Damiente?
I think people will accept it.
Up,
I
y'all?
think they'll get. Hey, what's going on?
Boa noite.
What's up, Damiante?
Boa noite, amigo. Tudo bem?
Tudo bem?
Tá bom, amigo. Tá bom. Tá falando com seus amigos aqui, tá?
I'm studying a little bit.
Amigo. Sigue. Continue, man. Continue.
What's that?
You studying?
Portuguese?
Yeah. Portuguese. You studying it? Where are you studying it online, or you have a teacher?
I got like a couple apps on my phone, so just go through a couple words and phrases.
Tá bom. Deveria falar comigo, tá? É necessário de praticar todo o tempo, né? Todo o tempo.
Sim.
Praticar. Entendeu? Tá, amigo. All right, nos falamos. Anyway, but I was just saying, I think people will get used to driverless cars as long as they feel that it can work, because we believe in technology. A lot of people do believe in technology now. I mean, it's pretty funny, like I'm laughing. Like sometimes like I go to my mom's house, and my mom, she's old, but here she is. She's on her computer, and she's on there, You see this
My mom
lady,
is the same way.
Banging on the computer. She can't get off. She cannot get off of this, man. She can't get off of it.
Yeah, my mom is the same way. She likes YouTube, and finding a couple of times running into like one of Tommy Sotomayor's re-upload videos and him just going all over the place talking crap, and it's like I have to put in some kind of filter to make sure that you don't see this type of stuff.
Yeah.
but my mom,
Damn.
she doesn't mess with YouTube. But she's on the news channels, and and she's on emails and all that, and she's just she's constantly she's just all over the computer. She's on it. She can't get off of it, and she's old. Years ago, this is something that she would have not been able to mess with too much, but here she is on it, all over it right now. So yeah, people naturally gravitate towards this, and the kids, it's just they're wired for it. So anyway,
I just want to bring it back to one point about this whole space research, space exploration, the investment aspect behind it. You had Byron Allen. I think he bought the Weather Channel for like $300 million. And I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, what would we do with $300 million if we was trying to, leverage our infrastructure for artificial intelligence as Black people? What would we be doing? I've talked about some of this stuff before, maybe some weeks ago, but there was IoT-based applications in the city where they had a garbage can. They took a garbage can and basically put a sensor under the garbage can that weighs. That calculates the weight, and when on the street. So when a person puts the trash into the bin and the bin fills up, it has a Wi-Fi connection, and it basically sends a message out to the sanitation workers to come pick up this bin at this location at this time because it's full and it needs to be changed. Little aspects like that for environmental technology as well as STEM is where we need to be.
Yeah,
this person's making millions of dollars now. Can
I address that $300 million that you were just saying?
Yes.
I also saw that, and I thought that was ridiculous. Who's buying TV now? Everyone's trying to get out. Because I was completely shocked by that as well.
You got the weather
I
app
have
on
to.
your phone.
I would have to figure you have the Weather Channel on TV. You have I have the Weather Channel on my phone. Um, so I believe all of these tech, all anything that's TV now, because you have Apple TV for your phone and everything else like that. Everything is being moved to wireless devices and so forth. So Byron Allen, I don't think is I don't believe he's a stupid man. I don't think he's a dummy. I think this guy is looking at this thing from a rather broad three-dimensional perspective. And I can see where even the Weather Channel, of which I saw, was a little bit surprised about, but I actually saw the Weather Channel was actually making movies, and when I saw that, I was like, "What movies? Weather Channel?" And yeah, they were making movies about about weather disasters and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, "Really, really? Did you any one of you guys were aware of this?"
No.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, to keep their audience. They have to kind of develop content, so that it makes sense
Yeah,
in the long
yeah,
run. But when I'm looking at this, is like Black people who have the wherewithal don't have access to the necessary financial resources, and the people who have the financial resources seem to spend it on things that are not always beneficial
yeah,
to the collective.
yeah. I would totally agree with that. Um, but this is my view as well. We should, you got a good idea. You should always go to these people and at least pitch it to them. And have them tell you get the fuck out of here, but at least get in their faces because at some point in time somebody's gonna crack and give. And then if it works, if it's not if it works, then everybody's in. But that's my take on it. But yeah, but Mike, I do agree with you on that. A lot of people do not put the resources in the right places. I would think. Yes, absolutely right.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, no. I was saying, all right, all right. Yeah, but and then
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt
you
you.
go.
That autonomous bike. You think about when you was a kid, there used to be something called a paper boy where you used to ride around his bike and throw papers on
Yep.
people's steps. Now
Mm,
you have a bike
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
autonomous.
I had that job. I had that job. I would
Yeah,
agree
it
with
put now your little kids are out of work. Your preteens are out of work now.
you. Well,
mm.
autonomous. Well, I don't know. Can the autonomous bike deliver newspapers? Anyway,
It has the ability to stand up on its own. It has the ability to move on its own. What's to say you won't put a mechanism on there that just fires off a newspaper? But then again, who really buys newspapers anymore?
some people still like them. Some people still like to have a newspaper, and I can't lie. Sometimes I like to look in a paper myself. It's pretty funny,
Mhm.
but I do primarily go online. There's no question about that. But yeah, some people still like them. I mean, in some towns, which a lot of people, some of the more rural towns out there, where they don't, even in this country, where they have even issues with internet, which may sound strange here in America, but yeah, it does exist. People still are looking at the local papers as well. That's still out there. Maybe it's dying, but it's still out there. It does exist today, still.
Yeah, but we just going off the cuff for these last few minutes.
Right?
Uh,
Very
You
interesting.
you want to you want to focus on something else?
No, no, no. I was just pointing it out. That's all.
All right, that's cool. All right, all right, all right, all right.
It's very interesting. I will tell you that much. I'm all
Yeah,
ears.
yeah.
This is where the market this is where the market is going. IoT, AI, automation, computer engineering aspect of somebody has to manufacture some of these goods. 3D printing now. This is the time to really get in because this is Black people's last go around in terms of survival. If you don't figure it out by 2035, 2040, you're done. You can just hang it up and just call it a day.
I hate to kind of have to agree with you on that, but I kind of do because this is the we miss some of the other technological revolutions, and this one's right here, and we should be in it, and we shouldn't be out of it because of just being ignorant. That's what also brings me to my point about going to Africa and especially Ghana there and getting on the ground floor and getting into some manufacturing and stuff there as well, working with them or as close with them as possible, because the entrance fee to go in a place like that would be very cheap compared to what it would be to start something, start a manufacturing base here in this country. Is an African country, people that look like us, who are open to us, would be willing to do business with us is right there. And a lot of these, technologies that are emerging, we could get involved in its manufacture, production, and sales and profits off it as well. And this is something that we have to be thinking about. We certainly are not doing that here as much, but we could do that elsewhere where it's cheaper, where we can get in the ground floor and get a much bigger bang for your buck. $25,000, 30 grand over there goes a long way, as opposed to it's nothing here. To start something up, that's just it's no money. But there, it can get you in some interesting ways. So yeah, we need to get into this. We definitely need to get into this game any which way we can.
I know. I think Complex says that the link isn't working. Can you drop it in the chat?
Okay. Yeah. Un momento, por favor. Let's see. Oh, there you go.
Momento. You speak Spanish as well?
Nah. I speak very rudimentary, and I'm not trying to be modest.
Un poquito.
See, that I'm oblivious to what that means.
Español.
A little bit.
Really? Yeah. Español es una lengua muy importante aquí. It's an important language here. A lot of people speak it. I know, a lot of people have issues with Latino folks, but it's a language I think, that's going to expand a lot more around the world. And I think, it'd be a good idea to get some handles on some of
And
these.
just like Mike was saying, the hands-on learning, I will have to do the hands-on because I did the class, and after the first 2 days, I was checking out. Like, the college class is like an hour or so long. I was checking out after 15 minutes, mentally checking out after 15
Why?
minutes. It just didn't.
Yeah, that was me in high school.
Yeah, it just didn't catch me. After the
Which classes were you taking?
no, you had to do the Spanish as an elective.
Oh, okay.
I was mentally checking out after 15 minutes. My mind was thinking about something else.
I got a different.
This is the thing, because when I really I learned Spanish and I was pretty good with it from the time I was in junior high school, and around ninth grade, I was taking it. I had an aptitude and took it through high school, and then my last semester in college, I went to Spain. But when I really learned like Portuguese, I didn't, I got with a professor, one person. Wilson Lauria, and I sat down with him. He had a class. He was teaching people Portuguese, and I was taking a class one-on-one with him. He gave me a program text, and I had to do homework assignments, and then I would sit down with him, and then he would just start firing shit at me, and he made you speak,
Yeah.
and he used to always say, praticar, falar, we always say practice, speak. Say that, and that's how you would learn it, and that's how it was in Spain. When I went there, even though at the Universidad de Madrid, you had a lot of English speaking students there, but still, you would get in some classes, in the American classes, where the professor, the teachers would, and I was just doing Spanish history and so, Spanish history of the golden age, and that's what I was there studying. It was a total bullshit fucking class. We're just hanging out, in Spain, learning a lot about the culture there or whatever. But still, they would teach a lot of that in Spanish, so you had to practice it, and the teachers would talk with you. So I think it's all about just practicing it. So
Yeah, I will have to speak to someone consistently to learn, that back and forth.
Well, yeah,
Well,
well,
that's why you have the artificial intelligence, because now with Google Duplex, you can speak to the duplex, and it'll speak back to you in language that you prefer.
And
Real
okay,
time translation, gentlemen. Good evening.
yeah,
Good evening.
how you
hey,
doing? How
what's
you
going
doing?
on?
Hey, what's going on,
So
snob?
Getting in late.
It's
I'm
not.
sorry. I'm sorry.
What's-
so so you saying if you say something wrong to it, it'll correct you, and you'll ask it, well, how do you say this? It'll tell you. So it's that back and forth.
Yeah,
But you know,
Oh
but you know
man.
something. Let me just say this. You always want to. It's always good to practice with a person because I remember when I was learning Portuguese, and then my teacher was like, "Well, you have to learn, the accents, kind of where, let's say, if you're speaking, from a karaoke of somebody who's from, Rio, or say somebody from, let's say from Bahia, you could say, somebody from Bahia would say, where do you live? You know, uh, onde, você vivem, you know what I'm saying? And then you'd be like, oh, where do you live? That's how they would say that. But if you were in Rio, okay, from a karaoke standpoint, they'd be like, onde você mora? Yeah, isso, a lot more musical. They'd be a more musical type of, pattern to their speech, and
So
a
like
little more.
dialects. You're talking about speaking of dialects.
Well, dialects would have some, yeah, a little bit. It'd be a little bit
Mhm.
dialectical, but really was the accent. What they say is sotaque.
Oh, okay. Right.
The accent was different. Well, just like if you were in Spain, and they would have a Castilian accent, where if I was to say, traduz cante para mí, and then but in Castilian it'd be traduz cante para mí, so they would have a different way of how you pronounce the language, so it would be different. So you have those differences. I don't know if the Google speak would have it like that, but somebody who knows that would give
They
you,
would learn
the
it.
yeah, it's just like in Brazilian Portuguese. If I was to say, if I was going to say, if you were in southern Brazil, you'd say, eu sou americano, americano, eu sou americano, very kind of Spanish like. But if you were in Rio and in the more central area, it'd be eu sou americano, americano. You would have you'd have to drop, become more from deeper in the throat instead of americano, americano, different way you pronounce.
Well, if you actually watch the video, then you
They
see,
may
like,
have that.
in the video. No, I'm saying in the video you see that the person is speaking. The white woman is actually speaking Mandarin to the machine, the AI machine that's in place, and it's actually correcting her and things. She's having a full conversation with it, and it's translating and spitting it back
Awesome.
out into English.
That's awesome. That would be helpful.
And they
I mean,
said it's very comparable. Yeah, they said it's in the video. It says it's very comparable to that of IBM Watson, which is a very powerful AI machine in the United States.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
See,
I mean, it
wish
would be
I was
useful.
coming around at this time, man, because
Say that again.
I said I wish I was coming around at this time because, like Lionel was saying, taking language class back in school, just you kind of check out, and it wasn't the same experience for me, but what it was just like you got disruptive kids that don't really care about learning another language. 'Cause I was taking French, and French was interesting, but by the time get into the lesson and kids start acting out, I mean, you kind of just check out, and that hour just kind of blows by every day, right? So, I mean,
What's your name again? What's your name again?
Damiete.
Damiete. Okay. Damiete. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I could have said, like I said, I think if you not have access to an AI machine like that, which would be awesome. I
Yeah,
would just like to say,
a tutor would be best.
yeah. Tutors are good because what they're gonna make you do is they're gonna make you speak. Because my my Portuguese professor, I would come down next to him, he'd be like, "Parabá, parabá, parabá, parabá." I'd be like,
Yeah, see, rapid
oh,
fire French coming at you. It's kind of hard to keep up with that, man.
yeah. So and then he would talk fast to me because what he said was, just like when learning Spanish, as long as you pick up 2 or 3 words in that sentence, you getting the idea. And then as
Yeah.
you hear it more, you're picking up more, and that's just kind of
And
how.
see, and that's what I'm saying. If you got, imagine you got Google Duplex at home, right? And maybe you got I don't know, a Google Max or the Apple HomePod, or let's say you got VR. That's even better. So then all you got to do is plug your kid into the VR with the Google Duplex, and that's just going to change the whole education game right there. Because then you can have homeschooling and parents can be involved, right? But you would still have I guess, an AI concept where you teach a child language or math or whatever the case is. But you don't have to put your kids into school no more. You just do it at home.
Who has the
Diamante, why are you studying Spanish right now? Is there a reason you want to pick you plan to travel or something?
For me?
Yeah, I'm with hopes traveling the next couple of years. I'm trying to go to
Dominican Republic.
I like to go to Brazil or Nigeria, and I'm trying to make it out to Angola and just travel around. Have names on my back.
Yeah, I was in Angola. Yeah, I was there. So
I also wanted to check out Angola, but I heard there is their currency like stronger than most of Africa? Is that true?
Yeah, the country's a little fucked up right now. So I would suggest to go because it's very expensive. Very expensive.
Portuguese,
yeah, I saw that.
Portuguese. Yeah, they speak Portuguese. Few people speak English, but
I hear the currency is so strong is because it's kind of either related or pegged to their oil, exporting.
Yeah. Plus, you got the what's her name there? Why am I throwing?
Yeah, the
woman who's they greed, a lot of as they say in Portuguese, a lot of corrupção, or corrupção, a lot of corruption going down. So they've got a great product there, but I think that they're kind of abusing it a little bit. But really nice beaches, and very very pretty black women there as well.
Who has the Google Home?
I don't. I was thinking about buying a HomePod, but
I have the Alexa. I have the Amazon Echo. If that's comparable.
So you like that better than the Google Home?
I bought it. I bought it as a gift for Mother's Day, my mom's, but it seems to be very efficient in comparison to anything else. Or just as efficient, but they're mostly all built off of the same TensorFlow platform. So TensorFlow. It's an actual open source platform used for making machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was in.
I think that's the platform they use to make deep fakes, if I'm not correct.
To do what?
I'm mistake, I should say. I think they use TensorFlow to make the deep fakes AI.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys know about that.
Yeah.
Deep. You want to explain that a little bit? You want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, explain that a little bit.
Oh, the deepfakes is just basically, first it's open source and it's relatively easy to use. What you do is you have a picture of, celebrities, they have lots of pictures taken of them. So you put the name of the celebrities into the algorithm. So it kind of uploads it into there, and then it learns like the facial features of that celebrity, because they'll have pictures from basically every angle and every facial expression, especially if there's video and pictures. And then they basically crop that onto an adult film actress. That's basically deepfakes. I don't know if you have seen it float around on the internet, but it's already begun. But in the future, they're more worried about if they'll be able to do that with political figures, and especially now when there's also a new AI that basically generates a person's voice by analyzing other speech that person has done.
Is that the same as?
That's kind of fun.
No, I got a question real quick. Is that the same as? Is that the same as some of these YouTubers who are basically cropping their heads and putting it on Thanos and calling themselves the realest nigga alive?
Yes, exactly. Or the one with who's the guy from Treasure, National Treasure?
Oh,
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage. They did that with him.
There's basically a meme of Nick Cage in basically every movie, and they use that algorithm.
Yeah.
They did what to Thanos?
They put. Oh, wait. Thanos.
Certain people want to be Thanos.
Wait a minute.
Oh, so
That
they
shit's
they
hilarious.
This is too funny.
themselves
That
mythical.
shit's hilarious.
Somebody put a link in this. I have got
Certain upset people want to be Thanos.
That shit's.
somebody put.
You
I
want to look like
I-
Thanos.
have
Without giving away too much. Certain upset people.
Oh,
Oh my God! That caught
oh
me
my
off
God,
guard.
that
My
shit
goodness.
is funny.
They got the Infinity Stones.
Somebody put a link. I have got to see this, man.
With a nigga's face.
I saw that shit, and
That's crazy, man.
he's thinking that's the most buttling thing that's ever happened.
Holy shit!
So I'm
Man.
just sitting there saying, "Wow, all right." Anyway,
Wait a minute.
takes all kinds.
I have got to look this up. I am not letting this go, Tasi. I'm not seeing Tasi this.
It's funny. Well, if you want to use it, you can also do it as well. It's pretty intuitive. If you want to become Thanos too, it's possible.
That's funny, man. That's real funny.
Oh boy,
It's hilarious, man.
That's what it's for.
No, but
You were speaking to the deep fakes.
What was that?
I said you were speaking to the whole deep fakes thing.
Oh yeah, deepfakes. There's new dimensions now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
But you can say, this technology is great, good. You can say all that, but that just shows you how left it can go. You know what I mean?
I mean, I look at it as like if you look at it in terms of some of the future tech, right? A lot of it is kind of predicated. It's kind of predicated upon what you're seeing now. So if you were to kind of take a page from Ghost in the Shell, right, where you're literally dealing with like full on like humanoid type beings or like robot, cybernetic beings, where you got like a full on fusion of man and machine to the point where it's like the fusion looks natural and organic, right? This is what kind of leads up to that. So it's like you kind of recognize it and accept it for what it is and what you could actually wield it for, yourself, versus kind of seeing how you're going to just be objected to it. I see a lot of rogue security firms, right, just popping up out of nowhere, where you just got some nerds sitting on there crunching, and somebody prints up some 3D bits, and next thing you know, they're building their own little AI bots to do all kind of crazy shit. I mean, these are, it does open it up for that, but then it also opens it up for a lot of commercial applications too. So there's always the good and bad with everything, as far as tech goes.
Oh my God, that was so funny, man.
What, Thanos?
Complex.
Yeah.
Yo,
did you ever check out that link I sent you, the Flux sale?
Oh, wait a minute, dude. I was actually gonna call you about that. I need to check it out again. That was about the was it about the
like the super solar panels, like just a better solar panel?
Yeah, I was gonna hit you up about that, man.
It's I found out about this like I was on the bus. This was probably like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the bus, and there was just a paper on the bus, and I picked it up and started reading it. And in the back of the paper, there was an ad on this solar panel that's supposed to be able to convert more energy out of sunlight than traditional solar panels. And the website was called Flux Cell. And basically, they got shares for the company. If you just want to check out, read up on it, it might be worth putting a little money into. But shares, 4 years ago, shares was like 5 cents, and fast forward, shares are like 10 cents now. And I think it'd be interesting for everybody to check that out. I put the link in the chat.
Is the link in there? Okay, I'll check it out again. Flux cells. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That's photovoltaic technology, like solar cells,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go back. It's been a while since I read up on it, but basically, it's supposed to just be a solar. It's supposed to be able to convert sunlight into more energy and store more energy than a traditional solar panel. And it's quite interesting, and it's got a little investment sheet that you can read up on it.
Well, that whole market, man, like the whole electrified market is just really gonna blow up, because now, with the advent of like these power wall systems, right? These battery storage systems that dump energy onto the grid. They can dump just as much as energy onto the grid at night as the energy collects during the day. I mean, that just kind of creates for a whole different energy, a whole different ballgame in terms of like how energy is used and applied.
Yeah.
Once
So is
everything
that
goes
basically like where during the day it takes the energy, stores it, and then sells it back to the
grid at night?
the electric company, and then during the night it uses it, and then at the end of the month,
Yeah.
it kind of becomes zero, or even the electric company gives you back some money. Is that kind of how it works?
You asking me?
Oh no, I meant Ulysses
Oh,
or you. I don't know, whoever knows this knowledge. I don't know.
as far as that goes, I'm not sure, but as far as the flux cell, last time I read up on it, it's basically for off-grid usage. So if you can just collect more sunlight, store more energy, it's just good if you're trying to get off the grid.
I think Qatar has something similar in terms of infrastructure, where they have this whole mirrors pointed at this tower that collects all the solar energy, and it basically stores it in the ground. But I'm not sure if they're using flux cell for that. They're storing it in some kind of capacity, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe it could be flux cell, but there's a approach to it now where blockchain technology, where they want to decentralize electricity, or decentralize people from the grid with solar panels and whatnot. So it was on Max Skies. I saw it the other day.
Jeez, what the hell?
You all right?
Something happened?
Must be snob behavior.
Yeah, fell off for a second.
How much of that did you hear, Damiante?
Yeah, not much. I fell off for some reason. I think Wi-Fi dropped out.
Yeah, okay.
You need 5G, man.
What was said?
So Ulysses, what's up, man?
I think he might have dropped the signal.
Maybe he's getting his
Ulysses need
headphones or something.
Ulysses need 5G too.
Say it again.
I said Ulysses need 5G too.
You said it's having issue with the audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's going to have some problems.
5G, man.
Okay, what was the topic again? Was it just space that you guys were talking about earlier, or is that another topic you also had?
That was a divergent topic, but we talked about it. It was interesting.
No, we were actually talking about space exploration in terms of where Black people need to be going, because IT is already a dominated market in places like India. We don't really have the human resources to actually compete on an 8-hour schedule in the United States versus another country like India, who operates 12, 16, and sometimes 18-hour shifts, in terms of human labor.
I have a question for Mike about that.
Yes, sir.
So when you say Black folks should get into space technology and everything, you're I mean, I'm sure you are, but describe how someone would get into developing and building. Let's say we in the future and we want to put a dome community in space, or even on a planet. How would you even start to make your move into that arena to even position yourself 50, 100 years from now to have a company that would be contracted to build a space station or
So you would need grants. I'm thinking about this from a an African American standpoint, right?
Right.
One of the biggest problems is that you can't sustain your community because it's constantly being gentrified, and there's a lack of there's a literacy problem. So the way how you would address an issue like this, or even approach a project like this, is that one, you would need land trusts to cement yourself, the people in that community, to the area itself through a land trust. And number two, you would want to create a tech incubator on that land trust that allows Black people or Black kids to actually learn, actually work on projects in these tech incubators. So you get a grant
Right.
from the federal government, maybe about $500,000 to $1 million. That's more than enough money to facilitate the human resources, the kids, after school programs and things of that nature, and work on just the learning aspect of and I'm hearing feedback. Is that Ulysses?
Testing.
Yeah, I think that might be him.
No, I think still having audio issues.
Yeah, because I can hear him in the background. But to this point is that you would actually have to get the grant and utilize that as a way to do the research first, because the idea of putting a base on the moon and all that stuff, that's at least a 50-year or 35-year project. The United States hasn't been able to do it at all with all the technology and all their world power. They haven't been able to do it. So it's something that has to be planned out over 50 years. I mean, they talk about one small leap for man, and giant leap for mankind, and they never put a man on the moon. It's a joke.
No, we did. We certainly did, and how I know why we did it is because when we started doing the we wanted to have the most perfect time clocks, and what we did, they went up to the moon and put a reflecting mirror laser from Earth, and exactly how the moon circled the Earth.
When was this?
Constantly. This was with one of the last Apollo missions, and so they put that mirror there, and so it's set to get the most close, time. They actually did that with really the revolutions of the moon around the Earth, and
you're saying they put a man. I don't mean to interrupt you. You're saying they put a man on the moon?
Yeah. Of course, we landed on the moon.
You breaking up, Nicole?
Are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. You have these guys talking this conspiracy madness, and
no, it's not conspiracy.
How come you don't think we didn't go to the moon? Mike?
Sometimes it does.
They didn't have the technology. They didn't have the technology back then, and they don't have the technology now. Even China, with all of their tech.
Hold on a second.
Hold on 1 second. Even China, even China, with all of their technological advancements, said it's a 25-year project for them to put a person on the moon. So they're guesstimating by 2040 that they're going to put somebody on the moon. But the United States hasn't put anybody on the moon since the last time that they said that they had, without any evidence being provided, because they didn't have the technological advancements back then to even do it. So,
Mike,
but do you think
in what way
the Russians would just have let the U.S. go? With them just saying they put a man on the moon?
I would say so.
Or okay, how far do you think we went? Did we at least go into space? What do you think is the threshold?
We know that they sent the Saturn V into space, but there's no evidence that they actually put somebody on the moon.
No, I mean just in general. Did a man go into space beyond the ionosphere?
Oh, absolutely. They went into space. They went into space, but I don't think they put anybody in the moon.
Mike,
there's no evidence that they've ever done that.
Mike, where are you getting your information from this?
From the Museum of Science. There's no evidence that they ever put anybody on the moon.
Hold on a second. Museum of what science? What are you talking about?
Museum of Science in Boston.
Museum of Science in Boston?
Yes.
You talking about actual physical What's evidence?
Let's go. Let's. I'm
No,
gonna
no,
Google
no.
that up
I'm
real
not
quick.
saying that they. I'm not saying that they have proven it. I'm saying when you ask the question of how,
Okay.
when you ask the question of how the
Okay.
application was
Oh.
actually assessed and done,
Oh,
they
okay.
can't really
Okay.
repeat it. It's not a repeatable process.
Okay. I got
Do
you.
you think it's just
All
too
right.
expensive to be repeatable, though?
He's
Mhm.
saying
What you
it's
say?
such
What
an
you saying?
extraordinary technological feat that it just seems like how did
No,
you do it?
we hit the moon in basically a tin can fucking tin foil fucking aircraft. All right. This thing was this thing was not hard to do. You actually even had a man here on Earth who was a private citizen build a rocket, blasted that shit off and hit fucking black skies. All right. A dude in his crib. So yeah, no. And remember the guys who were working on this, guys like Werner von Braun and them out of Germany, these guys were really on top of this shit, and they came in and did the whole Saturn, the whole Saturn 5 rocket, 5-stage rocket.
Mhm.
We hit the moon. We put a special mirror on that moon, on a case in the moon, where we could fire a laser and hit it back and forth to actually give us perfect time, so we could have all of our clocks synchronized to to get perfect time, or as close to perfect time as we could within some fractions of a second. And it was done through basically laser light, and that basically proved that we have this on the moon where we're firing this on a regular consistent basis. And that was one of the missions
Mhm.
of the Apollo flights to do that. I mean, you have to understand, the moon is only 230,000 miles away. That's all it is. Okay, it's not 230,000 miles. That's how far.
What I'm saying is there's a flag on the moon, right? An American flag.
There may be a flag there now. I'm not
And
sure.
the moon is made of cheese too.
Yeah, the moon.
No, I'm not saying it's made of cheese. I'm saying
I'm just
looking at
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm looking at all the amateur videos of telescopes, because I'm a telescope freak myself. And when I look at some of the content of people looking at the moon, my coworker used to have a high powered telescope at work. As many times,
Hold on,
to go.
That's been debunked.
as many
Anyway, go ahead.
times as there's been video posted about the moon itself, the surface itself, where allegedly NASA has landed, there's no evidence that there's a flag there. There's nothing there.
See, I remember when I was a kid, right? Way back, and I was in Toledo, Ohio. And I was at UT, the University of Toledo. And supposedly they had evidence from the moon, like little aluminum trays that held like rock from the moon. And I mean, I'm not saying that we didn't go to the moon, but it wasn't too convincing, that rock that they said was from the moon. So
It's been debunked that the rock was even real. They took it to not the Smithsonian, but one of the European agencies.
No, it's Corbulite. It's actually got a they actually put it on a periodic table. And listen, I'm not gonna. I think we're wasting our time. Getting into this whole into this absolute idiocy. This is craziness. But anyway, let's move forward. It's too much evidence out here to show what we've done. If you believe that, fine, believe it. But I was a kid watching these moon flights. I was a kid up there watching them as they went on. We
Okay, regarding that, okay. Okay, let's say we set up some partnerships or research projects, let's say in Ghana, for example, to do space related research. How would that go? Does it always have to be based on grants, or do you need a government support?
I say grants
ahead.
because you want the largest amount of lump sum that you can get, and you're going to get that in grants rather than you're going to get that in loans, right? And you don't have the ability to repay back a loan, so that's why I went with that. But in terms of all the technology that you have now, a lot of that stuff is so good now. Like, you don't even need a supercomputer anymore. Like an Alienware laptop with a high powered Intel processor in there can run, can do your whole entire operation.
Right. So, but I'm saying with those kind of things, you need, I guess, not like incubators per se, but different areas, kind of working together. You have a tech arm, and then you have a academic research arm, and then you have funding, and they kind of have like a synergy together with the different, companies and institutes working together, sharing research, that kind of thing. That's kind of more what you're going to need, correct?
Right. You have companies like UTC. Is it UTC? Some of these government contracted space agencies or aerospace firms that are always looking to provide literature and white papers and things of that nature for you can so that you can actually utilize to get your project off the ground, because it helps them in the long run in the long run as well.
So how would you go about saying doing this? Let's like take this as a hypothetical.
Write
Would
a
you
proposal
already have to
first.
be working in aerospace yourself? Would you have to be a tech company?
No, you don't even need to be doing all that. You would have to get you have to establish yourself as a nonprofit for one, and then number two, you would have to write a grant. The grant would have to be written in a way that is universally acceptable language for most corporations that you're trying to get the funding from, as well as the government bodies that you're looking to get funded from. So your environmental protection agencies, some of the other regulatory bodies as well that has leftover grants that are always looking to get rid of these grants, because if they don't spend the money, then what happens next year around or the next presidential election cycle, then they don't actually get it in return. So they have to spend it in some form of manner.
Right, but what if you are a company that's trying to take advantage of this research? You know what I mean?
Oh, you'd have to be established first. They would have to, vet your credentials and stuff like that, and actually quiz you, as well as background investigation to make sure you're not trying to facilitate any illicit activity to another nation state.
Are these grants supposed to be like a nonprofit where you have to have a zero balance at the end of the year or something? Is that what you mean?
No, I was speaking from a government standpoint. So the government would have to provide some of these grants, because if they don't do it, then what happens is they can't. They won't get the same grant again next year, right? They won't get the same funding again next year. But if you're a nonprofit, then you would want to do business with those people, with those regulatory bodies.
So could a group of tech companies, aerospace companies, material science companies establish their own nonprofit, or does the nonprofit have to be a separate, completely from those people who are trying to also take part in that research?
I believe it has to be separate so that there's no collusion.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else?
No. I'll bring something up real quick. It's totally off topic. Did you guys hear that freaking Obsidian that Obsidian
Oh man,
that hangout?
We could talk about that offline. We could talk about it offline.
Okay. Well, any closing remarks?
No, I think that's
Has
it.
anybody rode the bird scooters yet?
The bird scooters?
Bird?
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
Bird, BIRD, bird. The bird scooters, the ride share.
I never heard of them.
Oh, really?
I've never heard of those.
The electric scooters that are basically ride sharing scooters, like a version of YouTube or Uber.
No, we don't have those up north.
Okay.
Dang.
We have something like that. And they're not in the ride sharing.
What you
They're
got? I think it's Lime and something else.
Okay.
Oh, well, anyway, they're fun to ride. That's what
Oh, okay, cool. Well, thank you all for tuning in Monday. This is I just renamed it Cutting Edge Monday because some of the stuff we talking about pertaining to the topics is cutting edge. But don't forget to tune in Tuesday for geopolitics, also known as the World Turns, and Money Making Friday. Thank you all for joining us, and you all have a nice day.